Admiral Krovac stood on the bridge of the Supreme Victory, his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the blue-green planet on the main view screen. Earth, the newest target for the Trizarian Empire. Primitive, he said, his scaled skin catching the soft blue light of the command center. Another world that will soon serve the Empire. Behind him, his officers worked quietly at their stations. None questioned the Admiral. In his 30 cycles of service, Krovac had conquered 12 worlds for the Empire. His methods were simple and always successful. Show up with overwhelming force, demonstrate power, and accept surrender. The few species who resisted never lasted more than a few days against the massive Trizarian fleets. Report, he ordered. His second-in-command, Major Tem, stepped forward. Unlike the Admiral's deep blue scales, Tem's were pale green, marking him as from the southern regions of the Trizarian homeworld. Admiral, our scans confirm previous intelligence, Tem said. The humans have established small colonies on their moon and the red planet they call Mars. Their technology is at least 3 generations behind ours. They have nuclear weapons, but nothing that could harm our ships. Their space fleet consists of fewer than 50 vessels, most of them unarmed scientific craft. Krovac nodded, satisfied. And our numbers? 5,000 warships. Admiral, the standard conquest force. We outnumber their space vessels by more than 100 to 1. Excellent. Krovac turned to look at the planet again. These humans will provide no challenge. By this time tomorrow, they will be subjects of the Empire, and we'll be selecting which of their lands to claim as our new colonies. Tem hesitated. Admiral, there is one unusual note in the intelligence reports. Unlike other species we've encountered, humans have an exceptionally diverse cultural and governmental structure. They are not unified under a single leadership. Krovac waved a dismissive hand. That will make their conquest even easier. Divided leadership means divided response. They will be too busy arguing among themselves to mount an effective defense. Yes, Admiral, Tem said, bowing slightly before returning to his station. Krovac went to his private chamber adjacent to the bridge. There, he recorded his thoughts in the war journal that every Trizarian commander kept. Cycle 457, Day 89. We have arrived at the human homeworld, called Earth. Another primitive species to bring into the fold. They will see our numbers and surrender immediately, as all rational beings do. The conquest should be completed within standard protocols. I expect no complications. He closed the journal and returned to the bridge, where he gave the order that would begin the conquest. Major Tem, deploy the advance scouts. Destroy their Mars outpost as our opening demonstration. Yes, Admiral. Within moments, 3 Trizarian destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward the red planet. Krovac watched with satisfaction as they approached the small human research station orbiting Mars. The destroyers fired a single shot each. The station, home to 27 human scientists, vanished in a flash of light. Now, said Krovac, broadcast our message across all their communication channels. The communications officer worked at his console for a moment, then nodded. Ready, Admiral. Krovac stepped onto the broadcast platform. His image would now be appearing on every screen and communication device across Earth. He straightened his posture and began the standard speech. People of Earth, I am Admiral Krovac of the Trizarian Empire. Your world now falls under our protection and rule. Your Mars station has been eliminated as a demonstration of our power. You have 1 planetary rotation to surrender your governments to Imperial control. Resistance is futile against our strength. We outnumber your space forces by 100 to 1. Choose submission and survival over defiance and destruction. He stepped off the platform, pleased with his performance. It was a speech he had given many times before, with minor variations for each new world. Now we wait, he told his officers. Bring the fleet into standard conquest formation. Position 1,000 ships over each of their major population centers. Let them see our numbers darkening their skies. The massive Trazarian war fleet moved into Earth orbit, their ships forming perfect geometric patterns over North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, and Australia. Each vessel was twice the size of the largest human spacecraft. Together, they cast shadows over the cities below. Their response? Admiral, Tem asked after several hours had passed. Krovac frowned. Typically, New Worlds responded quickly with surrender terms or at least requests for negotiation. Nothing yet. No, Admiral. Their media networks are reporting on our presence, and their military forces appear to be mobilizing, but no official response has been transmitted. Curious, Krovac said. Perhaps their divided leadership structure is indeed causing delays in their response. Just as he finished speaking, the communications officer called out, Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It appears to be from something called the United Earth Defense Council. Display it, Krovac ordered, intrigued that the humans had apparently formed some kind of unified response body. The main screen showed a human male, older by their standards, with gray hair and a stern expression. Admiral Krovac of the Trazarian Empire, the human said, his voice translated by the ship's computers. I am General Thomas, spokesperson for the United Earth Defense Council. We have received your message and considered your terms. Krovac allowed himself a small smile. Here would come the surrender, as it always did. We decline your offer, the human continued, his face showing no fear. Please leave our solar system. The bridge fell silent. Officers looked up from their stations, expressions of shock visible, even on their alien faces. This is unexpected, Tem whispered. Krovac felt a flash of anger. They decline? They can see our numbers. They can see our power. Are they blind or simply stupid? Your orders, Admiral, Tem asked carefully. Krovac took a deep breath, regaining his composure. This had happened once before, with a stubborn species in the Orion sector. They too had declined initial terms, only to beg for mercy after a stronger demonstration. They require a more convincing demonstration, he said coldly. Target their moon base. Destroy it completely. Admiral, there are approximately 500 humans stationed there, Tem noted. Exactly. A small sacrifice to save billions. Once they see we are serious, they will surrender. The order was given. A single Trazarian destroyer approached Earth's moon, took position above the human lunar colony, and fired its primary weapon. The base, humanity's first permanent outpost beyond Earth, was vaporized in seconds. Now broadcast again, Krovac ordered. Tell them they have 12 hours to surrender, or we begin planetary bombardment. The message was sent. Earth went silent. They'll respond soon, Krovac told his officers confidently. They're deliberating surrender terms. No species can witness such power and still think resistance is possible. He returned to his private chamber and made another entry in his war journal. The humans have shown unusual stubbornness, refusing our initial terms. After a second demonstration of our power, they have gone silent. I expect their surrender within hours. The conquest proceeds, with only minor deviation from standard protocols. As he finished writing, an alarm sounded. Krovac rushed back to the bridge. Report, he demanded. Major Tem's face showed confusion. Admiral, we're detecting approximately 50 small spacecraft leaving Earth's atmosphere. They appear to be heading directly toward our fleet. Krovac stared at the tactical display, watching the tiny human vessels approach his massive armada. Are they attacking us? He asked, incredulous, or coming to deliver their surrender in person? Unknown, Admiral, Tem replied, but they are on an intercept course with our forward elements. Krovac laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the bridge. Let them come, he said. If they wish to witness our power up close before surrendering, we can accommodate them. He turned to his weapons officer. No need to raise shields. When they come within range, destroy half of them. That should convince the survivors to return with our terms accepted. Yes, Admiral, the weapons officer replied, programming the targeting systems. The human ships continued their approach, tiny specks against the void, flying directly toward the teeth of the largest invasion fleet they had ever faced. No one on the Trazarian bridge thought to ask why a doomed species would send only 50 ships against 5,000. No one except Major Tem, who watched the approaching vessels with growing unease. "Admiral," he said quietly, "something doesn't feel right about this." "Admiral, the human vessels are maintaining their approach vector," reported the tactical officer. "They will be in weapons range in 30 seconds. Admiral Krovac watched the main view screen with mild curiosity. The human ships were small, each barely a tenth the size of even the smallest Trazarian vessel. Their designs were crude, all sharp angles and exposed components, nothing like the sleek, organic shapes of Imperial craft. "Magnify," he ordered. The screen zoomed in on the lead human ship. It had UNDF painted on its hull in white letters. "UNDF?" Krovac asked. "United Nations Defense Force. According to our intelligence," Major Tem answered. "It appears to be their newly formed unified military." "Unified or not, this is suicide," Krovac said. "They're coming straight at us with no evasive maneuvers. They must be planning to surrender." The weapons officer turned in his chair. "They are now in range, Admiral. Weapons locked on 25 of their vessels as ordered. Fire at will," Krovac said casually. The officer pressed his firing control. Nothing happened. "Sir, weapons not responding," he said, confusion in his voice. "Running diagnostic." Krovac frowned. "Switch to secondary systems." Before the officer could comply, the communication station erupted with urgent messages. "Admiral, 300 ships in our forward section are reporting control system failures." "What?" Krovac moved quickly to the tactical display. On the screen, he watched as status indicators for hundreds of Trazarian warships suddenly turned from green to red. "Impossible." "Sir," Major Tem said, his voice tight with concern, "the human vessels are broadcasting some kind of signal. It appears to be bypassing our cyber defenses. Shut down all communication systems." Krovac ordered. "Isolate the fleet command network." "Too late, sir," the communications officer said. "The signal has already penetrated our—" The main lights on the bridge flickered. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing the command center in an eerie red glow. "Status report," Krovac demanded. 312 ships disabled, Admiral," Tem reported, reading from an emergency terminal. "Life support still functioning, but weapons, propulsion, and shields are offline." Krovac couldn't believe what he was hearing. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever managed to disable even a single Trazarian warship, let alone hundreds. "The human vessels," he said. "What are they doing now?" "They've changed formation," the tactical officer reported. "They're releasing smaller objects, thousands of them." On the screen, the human ships were indeed deploying what looked like tiny metal pods, each no bigger than a Trazarian escape craft. "Identify those objects," Krovac ordered. "Unknown design," the tactical officer said. "They're too small for our normal scanning protocols. They're spreading out, moving toward our disabled ships." Major Tem leaned closer to the screen. "They're attaching themselves to our hulls." Krovac watched in growing horror as the tiny devices latched onto the disabled Trazarian vessels. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the massive warships began to explode. Not the controlled detonations of targeted weapons fire, but catastrophic, ship-splitting explosions that sent debris flying in all directions. The tactical display showed ship after ship disappearing from the fleet formation. How is this possible?" Krovac whispered. "Sir, those devices must be targeting our power cores," Tem said. "Our ship's own energy is being used against them." "Order the fleet to fire on the human vessels," Krovac shouted. "All weapons. Now." "Sir, The human ships are already retreating, the tactical officer said. They're moving back toward Earth at high speed. And our fleet can't coordinate fire. The command network is still compromised. Krovac watched helplessly as the human vessels slipped away, leaving behind a scene of unprecedented destruction. In just 20 minutes of combat, if it could even be called combat, the humans had destroyed 800 Trazarian warships without losing a single craft of their own. Damage assessment, he said, his voice hollow. 823 ships destroyed. Admiral, Tem reported grimly. Another 300 still disabled but intact. Over 40,000 crew dead. Krovac felt his legs grow weak. He steadied himself against a console. This cannot be happening, he said. They're primitives. We outnumber them 100 to 1. Sir, said the intelligence officer, who had been quietly working at her station, we're picking up broadcasts from Earth. They're celebrating. Show me, Krovac ordered. The view screen displayed images from Earth news networks. Humans were gathered in public spaces, cheering as they watched footage of the retreating UNDF ships. Headlines scrolled across the bottom of the screens. First VIC2RI against alien invaders and TRESARI. And a fleet corrected by UNDF special operation. They knew, Krovac said softly. They knew exactly what they were doing. Major Tem approached his commander. Admiral, we should withdraw and regroup. Clearly, we've underestimated these humans. Krovac's four-fingered hands clenched into fists. No, we will not retreat. Not from primitives. Not from a lesser species. He turned to his officers. Call a war council. All ship commanders. We need to adapt our strategy. In his private chamber, Krovac opened his war journal with trembling hands. The words he had written just hours before now seemed like the arrogant musings of a fool. Cycle 457, Day 89. Second entry, he wrote. The humans have responded to our demonstration with an attack of their own. Using methods we've never encountered, they disabled and destroyed over 1,000 of our ships without suffering any losses. This is unprecedented in Imperial conquest history. He paused, then continued writing. We still outnumber them significantly. Our remaining fleet is more than capable of completing this conquest. But we must abandon standard protocols. The humans are not like other species we've conquered. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. This will require a new approach. As he finished writing, he heard the alerts signaling that the ship commanders were gathering for the War Council. Krovac closed his journal and took a moment to compose himself. He could not show weakness. The Empire had never failed in a conquest, and he would not be the first admiral to do so. Walking back to the bridge, he found Major Tem studying tactical displays. How did they do it? Krovac asked quietly. How did they bypass our defenses so easily? Tem looked troubled. Intelligence is still analyzing the attack, Admiral, but preliminary findings suggest the humans used our own communication protocols against us. They didn't hack our systems. They tricked them into accepting commands as if they came from Imperial command. That's impossible, Krovac said. Our systems are generations beyond their technology. That's what our intelligence suggested, Tem replied. But it appears the humans are far more adaptable than we anticipated. They may have captured and studied Trazarian technology from previous encounters on the outer edges of their system. Krovac felt a chill run down his spine. If the humans could adapt this quickly, what else might they be capable of? The War Council chamber was filled with the holo-projections of ship commanders. Many looked shaken. Some were openly angry. All waited for Krovac to speak, to explain how a primitive species had dealt them such a devastating blow. Commanders of the Empire, Krovac began, his voice strong despite his inner doubts. Today we have witnessed something unprecedented. But make no mistake, this changes nothing. Earth will still fall. The humans have shown us their best trick, And now we will show them the true might of the Trazarian Empire. As the commanders murmured their agreement, Krovac glanced at the tactical display showing Earth. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar stirring in his mind. Doubt. 3 days had passed since the humans' shocking counterattack. Admiral Krovac had not slept. He stood in the war room of the Supreme Victory, surrounded by holographic displays showing the remaining Trazarian fleet positions. Despite their losses, they still had nearly 4,000 warships, an overwhelming force by any standard. What have we learned about their technology? Krovac asked the intelligence team. Commander Liss, the fleet's chief intelligence officer, stepped forward. Unlike most Trazarians, her scales were almost black, marking her as a member of the rare mountain subspecies, known for their analytical minds. Admiral, we've analyzed debris from our destroyed ships, she said. The human devices targeted our power cores with a precision that should be impossible given their technological level. Explain, Krovac demanded. The humans appear to be extraordinarily adaptable. Liss continued. We've intercepted their communications. In just days, they've studied the wreckage of our ships and begun incorporating elements of our technology into their own systems. Major Tem, who had been quietly reviewing tactical data, looked up. That would explain how they bypassed our cyber defenses so easily. They're learning at an unprecedented rate. Impossible, said General Rax, the oldest officer present. His deeply lined face showed his displeasure. No species can adapt that quickly. It took us generations to develop our technology. The evidence suggests otherwise, Liss replied calmly. Their entire planet has unified against us. Every resource, every scientist, every factory is now devoted to defense. Their global networks are sharing all information instantly. Krovac paced the room. The standard Trazarian conquest doctrine was clearly failing. Their normal approach relied on overwhelming force, not tactical superiority. Their technology was advanced but standardized, designed for mass production, not innovation. We need to change our approach, he finally said. Our standard orbital bombardment is too predictable. They're already preparing countermeasures. He turned to the tactical display. We will commit our entire remaining fleet to a direct assault. All ships, full attack formation. We hit them hard, from all sides, before they can adapt further. The officers exchanged glances. A direct assault was rarely used in Trazarian warfare. It put too many resources at risk simultaneously. But no one challenged the Admiral's decision. Begin preparations, Krovac ordered. We attack in 6 hours. As the officers dispersed to carry out their orders, Major Tem remained behind. Admiral, may I speak freely? He asked. Krovac nodded. These humans, they're unlike any species we've encountered, Tem said. They don't follow predictable patterns. We should consider a more cautious approach. Caution. Krovac laughed bitterly. The Empire doesn't reward caution, Major. They reward success. And I intend to succeed. He gestured to the image of Earth rotating on the main display. Tomorrow, that world will be ours, no matter the cost. 6 hours later, the Trazarian fleet moved into attack position. 4,000 warships, arranged in a sphere around Earth, began their descent toward the atmosphere. On the bridge of the Supreme Victory, Krovac watched as the blue planet grew larger on the view screen. Any response from the humans? He asked. They're scrambling their forces, reported the tactical officer. Defensive platforms are activating across their surface. As expected, Krovac said, begin the assault. The Trazarian fleet entered Earth's upper atmosphere, weapons charging. But something unexpected happened almost immediately. Warning alarms blared across the bridge. Admiral, shouted the shield officer, the humans have developed countermeasures to our shields. They're using some kind of focused energy that passes right through them. Before Krovac could respond, reports of hits came flooding in from across the fleet. Earth's surface bristled with hastily constructed defense platforms, What should have been a simple assault quickly turned into something the Trizarians rarely experienced, a real battle. The human fighters proved unnervingly unpredictable. Some charged directly at Trizarian ships, sacrificing themselves to cause maximum damage. Others used clever decoys to draw fire, while the real attacks came from unexpected directions. Most disturbing of all, they kept changing tactics, never using the same approach twice. "They're targeting our command ships," Major Tem reported, his voice tight with stress. "They've identified our command structure and are disrupting it systematically." Krovac watched in growing horror as ship after ship disappeared from the tactical display. The human weapons were crude compared to Trizarian technology, but they were deployed with precise timing and unexpected ingenuity. "Order the Eastern Battle Group to focus fire on their largest defense platforms," he commanded. "Sir, we've lost contact with the Eastern Battle Group," the communications officer reported. "Their command ship was destroyed 3 minutes ago." 5 hours into the battle, the situation had become clear. This was not a conquest. It was a disaster. The Trizarian fleet, still superior in numbers and firepower, was being taken apart piece by an enemy that refused to fight according to any recognizable military doctrine. "Admiral," Major Tem said quietly, "we've lost nearly 1,000 ships." "At this rate, I can see the numbers, Major," Krovac snapped. He stared at the tactical display, watching as another command ship winked out of existence. The humans had somehow identified exactly which vessels coordinated Trizarian battle groups and had made them priority targets. With the command structure in chaos, individual Trizarian ships were falling back on their basic training, which emphasized formation and coordinated attack. But against an enemy that constantly adapted, these predictable tactics were proving fatal. "Sir," Tem said, "I recommend an immediate withdrawal. We need to regroup and develop new strategies." For a long moment, Krovac was silent. In his 30 cycles of service to the Empire, he had never ordered a retreat. Such an act would be seen as weakness, perhaps even treason. But as he watched his fleet being systematically destroyed, he realized he had no choice. "Order all ships to disengage and withdraw to Rally Point Zenith," he finally said, his voice hollow. The order was transmitted, and the Trizarian fleet began a chaotic retreat from Earth's atmosphere. Human fighters pursued them, picking off stragglers and damaged ships. By the time they reached safe distance, Krovac had lost over half his original invasion force. The humans had suffered massive casualties as well, but their resolve appeared undiminished. Their communications, which the Trizarians were still able to intercept, spoke not of the cost, but of victory. In his private chamber, Krovac made another entry in his war journal. Cycle 457, Day 92. "The direct assault has failed. We have lost over 2,500 ships. The humans fought with a ferocity and adaptability I have never witnessed. Their tactics change constantly, making our standard doctrines useless." He paused, then added words he never thought he would write. "For the first time in my career, I have ordered a retreat. The conquest of Earth cannot proceed using standard imperial methods. I will request permission from the High Command to develop a new approach." As he closed the journal, Krovac knew that the Empire would not be pleased. No Trizarian admiral had ever failed in a conquest mission. But he also knew something else, something that filled him with a fear he had never experienced before. The humans were not just fighting back. They were learning, adapting. And if the battle continued on its current course, the Trizarians would not just fail to conquer Earth. They might lose everything. Admiral Krovac stood before the holographic projection of the Trizarian High Command. 7 elderly Trizarians, their scales faded with age, stared at him with cold eyes. The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the projection equipment. "You have failed, Admiral," said Supreme Commander Vax, his voice like gravel. "No Trizarian fleet has ever retreated from a conquest. Explain yourself." Krovac straightened his posture. "Supreme Commander, the humans are unlike any species we have encountered. They adapt at an extraordinary rate. Our standard tactics are ineffective against them. Nonsense, hissed another council member. They are primitives. Their technology is generations behind ours. With respect, Krovac replied, that assessment is no longer accurate. In a matter of days, they have studied our technology from the debris of our ships and incorporated elements into their own systems. They've developed countermeasures to our shields and weapons. They've identified weaknesses we didn't know existed. The High Command members exchanged glances. Commander Vax leaned forward. What do you propose, Admiral? Surely you're not suggesting we abandon the conquest. No, Supreme Commander. I am suggesting a change in approach. A blockade of their planet while we develop new tactics specifically designed to counter their adaptability. The oldest member of the Council, High General Drath, laughed. A harsh, wheezing sound. The Empire does not adapt to lesser species, Admiral. Lesser species adapt to us, or they perish. Commander Vax nodded. High General Drath is correct. The High Command has already made its decision. 3 planet killers have been dispatched to the Sol system. They will arrive in 2 days. The humans will be given one final chance to surrender. If they refuse, Earth will be sterilized. Krovac felt a chill run through his body. Planet killers were the Empire's most destructive weapons, massive ships capable of rendering a world uninhabitable in hours. They were rarely used, as conquered planets were valuable resources for the Empire. Supreme Commander, I must object, Krovac said. Earth could be a valuable addition to the Empire. Its resources can be harvested even if the planet is lifeless. Vax interrupted. This is no longer about conquest, Admiral. This is about making an example. No species can be allowed to defy the Empire and survive. The holographic projections flickered out, leaving Krovac alone in the dimly lit chamber. He stood there for several minutes, processing the High Command's decision. When he returned to the bridge, Major Tem was waiting for him. The High Command has ordered the deployment of planet killers, Krovac said quietly. Tem's eyes widened. That seems extreme. It's a mistake, Krovac replied. But the order stands. We are to maintain our blockade until they arrive. As the Trazarian fleet held position at the edge of the Sol system, waiting for the planet killers to arrive, the intelligence team continued to monitor human activities. What they discovered over the next day alarmed them further. Commander Liss rushed onto the bridge, her normally calm demeanor visibly shaken. Admiral, we have detected unusual activity, she reported. The humans have captured several of our vessels intact. They've reverse-engineered our FTL drives. That's impossible, Krovac said. Even with their adaptability, they couldn't possibly understand our drive technology so quickly. The evidence suggests otherwise, Liss replied. We're detecting small human ships with FTL capabilities departing their solar system. Some have already been reported attacking our supply lines and communication relays in nearby star systems. Before Krovac could respond, the tactical officer called out, Admiral, we're detecting massive movement from Earth. On the main view screen, thousands of human spacecraft were rising from the planet's surface. Unlike their military vessels, these appeared to be civilian transports packed with people. They're evacuating, Major Tem said, watching the screen. But they're not heading toward their Moon or Mars colonies. Track their course, Krovac ordered. The tactical display showed the human evacuation fleet heading toward the outer reaches of their solar system, toward the gas giants and their moons, the asteroid belt, and other, seemingly random points in space. Intelligence suggests they've established hidden bases throughout their system, Liss explained, primarily in asteroid belts and on the outer moons. Our scans can't penetrate many of these locations due to natural interference. Krovac watched the exodus with growing unease. They know about the planet killers, he said softly. Somehow, they know what's coming. 2 days later, the 3 planet killers arrived. They were enormous vessels, easily 5 times the size of Krovac's flagship. Each one bristled with weapons designed specifically to tear apart a planet's crust and release its molten core. The commander of the Planet Killer Fleet, General contacted Krovac immediately. "Admiral, you will position your remaining ships to ensure no human vessels interfere with our approach to Earth," he ordered. "We will deploy in standard triangulation formation for maximum coverage." "General," Krovac said, "I must advise caution. The humans have demonstrated unusual capabilities." "Your advice is noted, Admiral," interrupted, "and dismissed. You failed in your conquest. Now step aside and let real warriors handle this." The Planet Killers moved into position around Earth, forming a perfect triangle that would allow their combined weapon systems to crack the planet like an egg. General broadcast the final ultimatum to any humans remaining on the planet. "People of Earth, you have defied the Trazarian Empire. This defiance ends now. Surrender completely, or your world dies. You have 1 hour to respond." No response came. The evacuation had continued throughout the days of waiting, and now Earth's major cities appeared largely abandoned according to Trazarian scans. "They're going to sacrifice their homeworld," Major Tem asked in disbelief. "Or they have a plan," Krovac replied grimly. "General should be more cautious." As the hour deadline passed, the Planet Killers activated their primary weapons. Enormous energy beams began to form at the front of each vessel, the power building to levels that would tear through Earth's crust. "Energy readings are off the scale," reported the Supreme Victory Science Officer. "Firing sequence commencing in 10 seconds. Krovac watched the screen, a sense of dread growing in his chest. Something wasn't right. The humans had proven themselves too clever, too adaptable, to simply abandon their homeworld without a plan. "General should abort," he said. "This feels like a..." The Planet Killers fired simultaneously, their devastating beams converging on Earth. But at the critical moment, something incredible happened. The beams hit some kind of energy field surrounding the planet. Not a defensive shield, but something else entirely. "What is that?" Tem asked in shock. "Energy readings are fluctuating wildly," the science officer reported. "The Planet Killer's beams are being redirected somehow." On the screen, they'd watched as Earth itself seemed to glow with stored energy. The Planet Killers tried to shut down their weapons, but it was too late. The energy they had poured into Earth was being channeled, controlled, and then released. A massive shockwave erupted from the planet, expanding outward at incredible speed. It engulfed the 3 Planet Killers instantly, tearing them apart. Then it continued outward, catching hundreds of Trazarian ships before they could escape. The Supreme Victory shook violently as the edge of the shockwave hit it. Alarms blared across the bridge. Officers were thrown from their stations. "Report," Krovac shouted as he pulled himself up from the floor. "The Planet Killers are gone," Tem said in disbelief. "Along with nearly 1,000 of our ships, and Earth. Earth is still there, but..." On the view screen, Earth had changed. Its blue oceans were boiling, its green continents burning. The humans had saved their world from total destruction, but at a terrible cost. They had rendered their own homeworld uninhabitable. "They sacrificed their planet to destroy our Planet Killers," Krovac whispered. "What kind of species would do such a thing?" As the remains of the Trazarian fleet regrouped, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The humans had not only survived, they had set a trap, and the Empire had walked right into it. Admiral Krovac stood alone in the communication chamber of the Supreme Victory. Only a week had passed since the Planet Killer disaster, but it felt like a lifetime. His once mighty invasion fleet was now reduced to less than 1,000 ships, many of them damaged. The humans, despite sacrificing their homeworld, were far from defeated. The holographic projector hummed to life, and the stern faces of the Trazarian High Command appeared before him. Their expressions were grim. "Admiral Krovac," Supreme Commander Vax began, his voice cold with controlled rage. "Explain how you allowed 3 Planet Killers to be destroyed." Krovac straightened his back. Supreme Commander, I advised caution. General rejected my advice and proceeded with the standard deployment. The humans had prepared a trap. They somehow converted the planet killer's own energy into a weapon. Impossible, another council member hissed. With respect, Krovac replied, we must stop saying that word. The humans have repeatedly done what we considered impossible. They sacrificed their own homeworld to destroy our most powerful weapons. He paused, then added, and that is not all. We are receiving reports of human attacks throughout the sector. The council members exchanged alarmed glances. Explain, Vax demanded. The humans had already evacuated most of their population to hidden bases throughout their system. They have ships with our FTL technology, small fast vessels that are striking our colonies and outposts with surgical precision. Krovac brought up a tactical display showing red alert markers across a map of Trazarian space. In the past 3 days, they have attacked 26 outposts, destroyed 7 supply convoys, and disabled 2 major communication relays. The council was silent for a long moment. Finally, High General Drath spoke, his ancient voice barely above a whisper. How can this be? We outnumbered them by 100 to 1. We had superior technology, superior weapons. And yet, Krovac said quietly, we lost everything. The words hung in the air, an admission of defeat that no Trazarian admiral had ever uttered before. The human psychology is unlike anything we've encountered, Krovac continued. They don't fight to preserve, they fight to win at any cost. They sacrificed their cradle world in a strategy we couldn't comprehend. Commander Liss, who had been standing silently beside Krovac, stepped forward. If I may, Supreme Commander, our intelligence has uncovered important insights into human evolution. Vax nodded for her to continue. Unlike Trazarians, who evolved from herd species that relied on numbers for survival, humans evolved as persistence hunters and adaptive problem solvers. They developed as cooperative individualists with an unusual capacity for creative thinking under pressure. In simple terms, Krovac added, when we attack in overwhelming numbers, we expect surrender because that's what our evolutionary history would demand. But humans see numbers as a challenge to overcome, not a reason to submit. The High Command was silent again, processing this information. Finally, Supreme Commander Vax spoke. Admiral, what is your assessment of our current situation? Krovac had prepared for this question. We cannot win this war. Supreme Commander, not with our current approach. Not with our current understanding of humanity. Before the Council could react with outrage, he quickly continued, the human counteroffensive is growing. Their ships are appearing in systems we thought were secure. They are targeting our key infrastructure with precision. And, he hesitated, several of our recently conquered species are now in open rebellion, apparently inspired by human tactics. The shock on the council members' faces was clear even through the holographic projection. What are you suggesting, Admiral? Vax asked, his voice suddenly tired. A full retreat from the Sol sector, establishment of a quarantine zone, and Krovac took a deep breath. A peace treaty. A peace treaty. One council member exclaimed. The Empire does not sign peace treaties with lesser species. Then perhaps, Krovac said quietly, we must reconsider which species is truly lesser. The debate raged for hours, but in the end, the practical reality won out. The Trazarian Empire, for the first time in its 1,000-year history, would sue for peace. 3 days later, on a neutral space station at the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Krovac met with the human representatives. To his surprise, they were not vengeful or gloating. Their lead negotiator, a woman named Admiral Cole, was firm but respectful. Our terms are simple, she said. The Trazarian Empire will acknowledge the sovereignty of all human-controlled space. You will also recognize the independence of the 7 species you conquered in the Orion sector, who have formed an alliance with humanity. Krovac studied her face, looking for signs of the ferocity that had destroyed half his fleet, but saw only calm determination. And what guarantees do we have that humanity won't continue its attacks on our territory? He asked. Admiral Cole's expression remained neutral. The same guarantee you have with any peace treaty, Admiral. Mutual benefit. We have no interest in conquest. We only wanted to be left alone. You sacrificed your homeworld to defeat us, Krovac said. That doesn't suggest a peaceful nature. A flicker of sadness crossed her face. We sacrificed Earth to survive. There's a difference. We knew the risk when we installed the energy reflection system. Most of our population was evacuated, but Earth will be uninhabitable for generations. She leaned forward slightly. We're not naturally warlike, Admiral, but we will do whatever it takes to protect our freedom. Later, in his private chamber, Krovac watched footage his intelligence team had recovered from Earth's final moments. The recording showed billions of humans evacuating, not in panic but with grim determination. They moved in orderly lines onto transport ships, carrying only essential belongings, many looking back at their homeworld one last time. One intercepted message from a human commander particularly caught his attention. They thought our greatest strength was our planet. They were wrong. Our greatest strength is that we can lose everything and still keep fighting. Krovac opened his war journal for what he knew would be the final entry of this failed campaign. Cycle 457, Day 99. The peace treaty has been signed. The Sol sector is now quarantined to all Imperial ships. The humans have achieved what no other species has ever done. They have forced the Empire to retreat. He paused, then continued writing. We didn't just lose ships and territory. We lost our understanding of the universe. Numbers mean nothing against a species that transforms defeat into opportunity. The humans didn't just survive us. They're stronger because of us. Krovac closed the journal and looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, the humans were rebuilding, adapting, growing stronger. The thought should have filled him with dread, but instead, he felt something unexpected: respect. May the stars help any empire that threatens them next, he whispered to the empty room. On the bridge, Major Tem was waiting with the coordinates for their return to Trazarian space. Are we really leaving, Admiral? He asked. After all this, Krovac nodded. We are, but we're taking something valuable with us, Major. What's that, sir? Krovac looked at the now distant Sol system on the view screen. A lesson, perhaps the most important one the Empire has ever learned. As the remaining Trazarian fleet jumped to FTL, leaving the Sol system behind, Admiral Krovac made a silent promise to himself. He would ensure the Empire never forgot what they had learned here. That true strength isn't measured in numbers, but in the will to survive against all odds. And in that, humans were the strongest species the universe had ever known.